Okay, thank you so much for coming to the core class. This is week two, where we'll be discussing the Hermetic principle of mentalism, the element of air, and your core individual beliefs. Thank you so much for coming by. How are you guys doing? Amber, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Darkheart, how are you? Marianne, Sophia, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Doing good. Enjoying my week off.
Great. So I hear a little bit of feedback in the background. If you can mute your mics when you're not speaking, if that's possible, that would help out the class a lot. Um, and there we go. So yeah, perfect. Um, I wanted to ask everybody has got their 350 word essay, and Amber, have yours. Darkheart, Marianne. So everybody in class right now has your essays. And the reason why I say that is because we're getting a lot of people coming into the chat room and also to the group page on the social media where if you haven't done the essay, you're not going to be allowed into those groups or chat rooms. And the reason why is to basically weed out people that have a sincere passion to learn, to grow, to empower their spirituality. A lot of people see it as a social club, and we're not that. So, moving right on, does anybody have any issues they would like to talk before we start with class? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. Um, so here we are beginning week two, and we have somebody coming in. Let's see, device is not connected. If he connects, we'll go ahead and add him. Okay, week two, mentalism, air, and spiritual beliefs. The first thing I want to talk about is um, Hermes Trismegistus. Megadus. Hermes Trismegistus, a legendary Hellenistic figure that originated from a combination of the Greek god Hermes, but also the Egyptian god Thoth. And who was first? Thoth or Hermes is a big controversy among occultists far and wide. Um, he is the so called author of the Hermetica, a widely diverse series of ancient and medieval texts that lay the basis of various philos- philosophical systems known as Hermeticism. Although we cannot be certain who was first, Thoth or Hermes, it's important to note that all Hermeticism comes from Cometicism. Again, all Hermeticism comes from Cometicism. Um, Practitioners of Cometicism consider themselves to be following the religious beliefs and rituals of ancient Egypt. Regardless who was first, whether it was Thoth or Hermes, we want to keep in mind the archetypical current of Thoth and Hermes as the same. The wisdom attributed to this figure, um, combined with the knowledge of both the material and the spiritual world, which render the writings attributed to him, is of great relevance uh, for people who are interested in the interrelationship between the material and the divine. Does anybody have an idea, or can anybody explain what the Hermetic principle of mentalism is? Anyone at all?
Um, so I see it as a layer, a plane, a world, a realm um, of source, the all, who thought the whole of the universe into being, um, and because we're a part of that, in fact, all thinking beings, wherever they are a part of that one creator, that one source, that whole layer is connected to our consciousness. So it's where we co-create, because that's what spell working is. It's where we possibly go if we don't choose to reincarnate. Just my opinions here.
I mean, great. I mean, that all sounds that's a great way of looking at the Hermetic principle in itself. Where I'm going with this, and what it states in the Hermetic text itself, it states that the all is mind, the universe is mental, and that has a lot to do with what, Sophia, you were just saying, is that it's kind of all-encompassing. It's a collective consciousness. So the all is mind, the universe is mental. This means that the underlying reality of the universe is mind, is mental, and the universe itself is a mental manifestation, an expression, of a supreme ultimate source, which seems to be like omnipotent, which is just basically the badass. So my question is, how can we pick apart what it means to be all of mind, or the universal mental? I mean, how can we tap into that universal collective? All is mind, the universe is mental. What does it really mean to you that reality is only mental? Starting with Sophia.
Oh. Okay, I have this theory that everything starts in our skull, in our brain. From the thought, we then go on to act. And when we act, that brings in our heart and our emotions. And the other place is the pelvis, where we have our gut instinct. So I believe that all three are connected within us, and that we draw on all three. But everything starts with thought, because unless we have a thought, we do not speak, we do not act.
Darkheart, what does it mean to you that reality is only mental?
Basically, to me. Oh, it's fine, Logan. It's okay. No, to me, it's basically the fact that everything is energy. Everything is held together in a latticework of energy, and our thoughts dictate our perceptions of reality. And like these realms of matter exist with or without us, within us and without us, as like it says on the Emerald Tablet, it's Hermes Trismegistus, as above, so below. Everything is just layers of reality, like an onion. And how we would access that in the practical note is our thoughts speak. We speak them. And as we speak them, that vibration, which is another Hermetic principle, pushes everything into reality and dictates our actions and our courses by what we think, by what we speak. And that's how we would change our reality, our perceptions of reality. Oh, Frankie, stop. I'm going to take him out for a minute. I'll be back.
Okay, absolutely. Absolutely. Amber, what does it mean to you that reality is only mental?
Well, I think that everything is mental. Our perception is our reality. How we perceive reality is what is created. It it basically, if you notice like the Aborigines and things like that, their reality is totally different than our reality, but it is real and it is their present time. Just like our reality is real and is our present time. Whatever you think is, whatever you believe is. And you can create that way just by thinking about it and putting it into motion. I have some friends that control the weather that way. So it's all mental.
Sophia, you had a comment, Sophia?
Yes, I said, wow, controlling the weather through thought. Yes, because I suppose our only limitation is the fact that we think we can do something, when in fact we're connected, and of course we can do it. We can do whatever we put our mind to, literally.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, I mean, we're not going to become masters of, the Hermetic principle of mentalism, in 5 minutes. But based on kind of what we gathered with, mentalism, how can we use that principle, within our craft, within our life? You know, how can we use the principle of mentalism in our daily activities? Anyone at all?
I would like to answer that.
Okay.
I believe that as our thoughts control our reality, we need to control our thoughts, which will therefore control our reality. So if we want to create a healing spell, for example, then we need to make our mind and thoughts on a healing level of vibration in order to create the spell or to create the effect that we need. That's all I got to say.
Yes, isn't that sympathetic magic where like for like, we have to be in the same area of thought, the same type of thought, to influence it and attract it. And
Well, sympathetic magic is kind of doing an action that triggers a manifestation of it. Like sympathetic magic would be like jumping up and down on your broom to show the crops how high to grow that harvest. That's a form of sympathetic magic. But what Amber was talking about with controlling your thoughts, I mean, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. And it reminds me of something that comes to mind that I heard of years ago, where it talks about watch your thoughts, because your thoughts become your actions become I think it was your character, character. It just builds up, and then it goes all the way to your fate, where to destiny. It's like it's from the, so your thoughts really are a powerful tool, one of the most powerful tools of any occultist, any magician, any witch, anyone. And to use the Hermetic principles of mentalism, I think just the realization that everything, is from the universal mind, the one. So to get your.
Can I just say that?
Yeah.
Yes. The first sort of exercise that I picked up from a YouTube magician who does Hermetic principles was controlling your thoughts, and it was about the fact that we can analyze and judge the thought as to whether it is beneficial or not beneficial to us. And if it's not beneficial to us, then we can reject it, and we don't have to keep dwelling on it or take in that negativity. And that's becoming much more of a habit with me, and it's fantastic. It's really life changing.
It definitely can be, where it definitely can be. Um, so to utilize the Hermetic principle of mentalism is to become the ultimate guru, master of yourself, And one of the things that, the most, well, actually, I'm going to say every magical school of thought that was ever documented, one of the things that they'll teach you is know thyself. And that's kind of the 101 with any type of like occult philosophy. And I think that has merit within the core class, to become a master of yourself. And I feel that a true master can only really be, that inner guru that we're talking about, is if they have no desires. Um, desires. So if I have a desire to always, drink Mountain Dew, and my world is just revolves around getting the next fresh Mountain Dew, it's almost like the Mountain Dew is controlling me. I'm going out of my way to make sure I get that Mountain Dew. I'm stopping at the store. I can't do nothing unless I got a Mountain Dew in my hand. And um, I think that becoming your own master has a lot to do with control over your desires. I mean, does that resonate with anyone?
Yes, I can sort of. Firstly, I don't understand what Mountain Dew is because I'm in the UK.
Soda pop.
Yeah, okay. So I had a bit of an addiction to chocolate.
Oh yeah.
And I used it to make myself feel better. Until it enlarged my liver, and I've got non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is real pain in the side. So now I have tiny amounts of chocolate, and I actually choose when to have it or not to have it. It doesn't control me. I don't think, oh, I'm feeling a bit down at the moment, I'll eat chocolate. That doesn't come into it anymore. So yeah, it's sort of a desire that I've suppressed.
I think it
Yeah.
all comes down to choice, really.
Choice.
I mean, it's a choice. What you choose is what happens. I mean, if I don't smoke now, but I used to smoke. If I want a cigarette, I have a cigarette. If I want to quit, I just don't. It's a choice, an actual choice that you have to do.
Yeah. So basically, what we've discovered is that mentalism is just a power of self-discipline.
Mhm.
But then, with an occult mind, it makes me want to tap into stuff like, what is my divine will? What is our divine will? You know, um, we have earthly desires and we have spiritual desires. And we're going to touch upon that later in this class. But quickly, what can we do, you think, to master the self or strive to attain oneness with that Hermetic principle, the universal mind? What can we do to tap into that universal mind? Um, uh, that divine will, because I think the universal mind could be considered a divine will.
Part of what works for me is meditation, for sure. Just being in nature, being quiet, feeling the energy and elements around me, meditating, those types of things. I notice that the more I slow down, the more I learn.
Yes,
That's it.
I'd agree
Excellent.
with meditation. And I'm only just starting that, but I ground whilst I'm meditating as well, and I find that really helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody mentioned it, and I thought, oh, that's a great tip.
Anybody else on how to attain that universal mind, that oneness? Anybody else? Okay. So, yeah, absolutely. You said meditation, and that, I mean, that works for me, and it's not always the easiest thing to do to meditate. You know, are you doing it right? What are you doing? You know, because I think ultimately, you know, meditation is quieting the mind enough where you're not really thinking about anything, so that you can receive that hermetic principle of mentalism. So you can receive that universal mind, and that universal mind, I think that it's called, you know, some traditions call it HGA, higher self. You know, so that higher self or that universal mind, you're quiet, you're not making so much noise, so you can hear what is being said. I think that another way to perhaps get in tune with that universal mind is things like chanting, things like mantras or mantras. Excuse my New England accent. It helps to quiet the mind and focus on the present moment. You know, living in the moment. So somebody that I talk to frequently on and off, who I respect, he told me something that really resonates with me. He told me that the past is an illusion and the future is an illusion, and the present is what's important. And I think that universal mind and that the hermetic principle is, and to getting in touch with that, has a lot to do with in the moment. So yeah, mantras, meditations, when you clear your mind of all thoughts, and which is very hard to do, a difficult endeavor, a way to be quiet enough to hear what the cosmos has to say. Some say that it's the higher self. I think a lot of the Kabbalists like to call this the HGA, the higher guardian angel, whatever you want to call it. Mentalism refers to the idea that behavior is influenced by internal mental states, such as thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. Yeah, how it shapes your behavior. This is where your beliefs. Now, this is important. This is where your beliefs become an important factor for your spirituality. Like asking the question, where did we come from? Where did you come from? Where are you going? And when you like I was saying, like the Kabbalists, they call it the HGA or the higher self, universal mind. I mean, you could call it whatever you want, you know. But the hermetic principle of mentalism still stands. You know, it becomes the core, and that's really what I'm trying to focus on in the core class, is getting to the root, throwing away all the different, not throwing them away, but not focusing on particular traditions or pantheons or ways of life, and just getting to the core things. And speaking of the beliefs, that's kind of a forefront that only the individual can come to terms with, because no one in the core class is going to tell you this is the way to believe. This is about your spirituality. And the meditation, it reminds me of a ritual that is well known in occultic circles called the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram. It's taken from a magical order called the Golden Dawn. And Darkheart, I think you have a little bit of experience with Golden Dawn stuff, which is cool. While the LBRP, Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram, and mentalism are not directly related, they both use visualization. and mental focus to achieve a desired outcome. The LBRP uses visualization to banish chaotic or impure forms of elements from around them, from tracing the pentagrams and invoking divine names, Hebrew in some cases. Similarly, mentalism involves using visualization and mental focus to influence behavior and shapes one's subjective experience. So it's coming all from the mind. It's coming directly from the mind. And this is why a lot of, the teachers of our day and before our day say basically that we create our own reality. We really do create our own reality. That's something that I've learned on my own path. Comments? Anyone?
Yes. When you mentioned about the present moment being all important, I was told or found or read or something. I found it anyway. That the past cannot be changed. Don't dwell on it. The future can't be fixed. It could go anywhere. There's all sorts of options to it. So the only thing that we have is the present. And so maybe the present moment is actually what's talked about when we say eternity. Because if we lived in the present moment all the time, or the majority of the time, then maybe that would be eternity, because there'd be nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was quite quite something.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
You hear me okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I was just thinking about the experiences of people with DHT and whatnot, where they can live an entire lifetime in just a couple seconds, and they can experience a whole nother reality and meet gods and all kinds of crazy stuff on the other side, all within just a few seconds. They can live like years, have kids and grandkids, live out an entire lifetime in just a few seconds. I mean, I do like the idea of like the past and future not existing, but with our thoughts and our actions, we can shape the reality we want. We can shape the future we want by concentrating on that, and by constantly thinking about that. We wear the trough full. And like I also feel when thought forms, if you can visualize enough and you can put enough oomph into enough emotion into those thought forms, you can pile drive your reality to not maybe where you can be, because there are certain things that are inevitable that you'll never obtain. But with the emotion to power those thoughts, you can drive that to where you need to be. Because basically your thoughts are basically just you at the wheel. Okay, your emotions are the engine that's going to push you there. Like me, I've had a lot of trouble with being rageaholic. I just keep pushing myself. You would not believe how hard I can push myself. Okay, but the whole point is, this is what we want. This is how we think we're going to get there, and we just drive ourselves there. So whenever you say that the future is not written, that's true, but we can shape that future to what we want. But we cannot violate the free will of other people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I mean by co-creation. Exactly what you've just said is what I would call co-creation.
Mm-hmm. Procreation.
Setting goals and vision boards help too. There's magic in that, believe it or not.
You said vision boards?
Vision boards, yeah.
Okay.
And goals.
Darkheart, you saying something?
Oh, You hear me now?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Okay. Basically,
Yes.
a treasure map is basically you either like cut out things you want out of a magazine, or you would draw it out like I do on a piece of paper. Like you want a house, you want this, you want that. You draw it, and every day you look at it for a few minutes and put it away. It helps focus you and visualize the things that you are working towards.
Hmm.
Yeah, using visual symbols to connect. Yeah, because I'd say that our subconscious mind is very receptive to that, and then is connected to the source, to the the great mind. Yeah.
Well, if any of you done the whole like invoking ritual, the hexagram, and did like the symbols, and did your little hexagrams and summon the planetary forces to aid you and stuff, or that's something you guys do or don't do?
I mean, I definitely have experience with the LBRH and stuff of that caliber, and we could definitely talk about that. But I want to get back to the Hermetic principle of mentalism, and we've decided that meditation seems to be the way, affirmations or mantras. But again, we're back to our beliefs. Why are we here? What's the purpose? How were we made? Where are we going? How did we get here? And when we start thinking about that stuff, our mentalism is definitely effective because it's part of our mental composition. Through the understanding of the Hermetic law of mentalism, we're able to diagnose the nature of the energy, the power, the matter, as beings below the power of the mind. Energy itself, the energy itself, the elementals, things of that nature, is below the power of mentalism, because the power of mentalism is all. It's collective. It's everything. It's like drawn from the source. So it seems like where we're at is that thoughts, feelings, and beliefs is our mentalism. And I think that about wraps up what I had prepared for the Hermetic principle section of the class. If anybody has anything to add, feel free.
That was great.
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you so much. But yeah, it really does. Thoughts, feelings, and beliefs is mentalism. And so I think where the motion is, as you've already noticed, this is a working class. We're not a social club. So I'm going to be asking for another essay. Probably this one with I'm thinking a 2-week window, because I know that people have jobs and things of that nature. And I'll put it in the core group of actually what I'll be asking for in the essays, and we'll go from there. The next section of today's class, I wanted to talk about the element of air, and not to rehash the different elemental grades and stuff like that, but I want to talk about air exclusively. In magic and witchcraft, air is, as we know, one of the 4 classical elements, along with fire and water and earth. And they draw with it different correspondences. Anybody in the class, off the top of their head, have some input on the correspondences that the element of air suggests?
I do.
Thought, journey, communication.
Intellect.
Mm-hmm. What about other correspondences like color?
A yellow.
Yellow. How about the universal directions? I mean, that's another rabbit hole for later. Why why these elements are associated in different directions, but what's the universal
Oh gosh,
language?
yeah. I really want to know that.
I
'Cause
do too.
yeah, because most people associate it with east and
Yes.
Mary's east.
Yes.
Um,
Right.
and I don't really know a lot about it, but the one thing that I found out about it is that the east is where the sun rises.
Mhm.
In the northern hemisphere, not
Hmm.
not in the south, but in the northern hemisphere. Therefore, are they associating air with a new day? Was there a particular sort of wind? Did they open their windows to the east? I don't know.
Hmm. And one of the things that I can remember a decade or two ago is that people who are involved in the craft or witchcraft or witches, that we've been derogatory termed, through whatever, but is that we are a type of current that questions everything. We want to know why, and that's it. We're not just going to take because you said so. We want to know why. We have the ability to, and this really needs to come back in modern times too. I believe is that we need to question all authority. Who says that air resonates in the east? Who made that up? And what I have found is um, the origins, the root of it comes from Mesopotamia, where in that time period geographically, it corresponded a lot. It corresponded a lot better than it did, in other places around. For example, the mountains were probably where their earth quarter was. So if you're standing in Mesopotamia in modern times, I'm pretty sure that the mountains are going to be north. If I'm standing in America on the eastern, seaboard, like New York City, east is not going to be water. The largest body of water is the Atlantic Ocean. So that universal language kind of, and here we are questioning the authority of who made up this universal occultic code to get to the origins. And I think the origins happen in Mesopotamia. But not to go off track, but does anybody have any comments on that?
Well, I live in the British Isles, so it's a coastal
Cool.
nation. I think it's something like you're never more than 30 miles away from the sea in any direction. But yes, north is the counties of Northumbria and Cumbria, which are mountainous, and of course, far north is the nation of Scotland, which is very, very mountainous. So it sort of works for us, and south of us are the warm lands of the Mediterranean, Spain, Portugal. So it works for us in the British Isles, but maybe it doesn't work for anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. And if it works, I say do it. I would say if it works, then do it. If it's not resonating, then it needs to be changed. And yeah, I agree 100%. So talking about the element of air, let us explore new beginnings, the youth, increase of energies, the creativity that comes with air. The seasons of the year is going to be the spring. And I think somebody mentioned travel intelligence already. And I think air has a big role to play in meditation, and to do with your breathing, metered breathing. Because when it really comes down to it, are we not air itself? We are air. It's not something that we're without it. We are the elements.
We
We
certainly
are that air.
we walk in air, we breathe
Mhm.
air, we need trees and plants to produce that oxygen. Yeah, we are air.
So with the air incorporating like metered breathing, and there's many different ways for that type of meditation. There's different variations of meditation. Um, but let us not forget about, the vibration of sound, the magic of sound, the vibrations of sound, which the vibrations is a whole different uh, branch of hermetics to begin with, which we'll talk about later. But the sound waves traveling on like the air molecules, the vibrations, the wind is like microscopic pieces of matter. And if we are to think about the hermetic principle of mentalism, where we're above matter, then we should be able to control the matter. And I would say, was be up to the individual to unlock that spiritual power, because it's your work and your endeavor to cross, to reconcile. But out of all the elements, air, it would seem that it has the most vibrations in it. It can move air itself, which is it can move other pieces of matter, and it can move stuff, and you can't see it; it's invisible. And there is like air is associated with the communication, divination. So how can we feel air when it comes to our senses? We have different senses like touch and feel. How can air be experienced through the senses of touch? Well, air can be sent.
We
Go ahead.
face into the wind, can't we? We can put our face to the wind, and our hair will, if we have hair, or clothes will blow
Right.
behind us.
Right.
We feel it.
Mhm.
We can also breathe it in. And we can see its effects on other matter, on blowing dust around, or blowing leaves around, or insects and butterflies and birds flying around us.
Right. When air moves, it creates a sensation to the skin. Yep. If there's air pressure, you can feel it with the skin. If anybody's ever been on an airplane, you can kind of feel the air make you a bit cringed more, or that nature. How about hearing? How can air, the element of air, be perceived through the sense of hearing?
There's sound like birds chirping or music. The air brings it to our ears.
And if you're between tall buildings, you can definitely feel and hear it. You can hear it whistle.
Yeah.
And whoosh.
And we hear that whoosh, but we don't see the whoosh. Or we may see the result of the whoosh of a branch moving, but we don't see the whoosh. And I think that's pretty fascinating. The rustling of leaves from the wind. it's like the vibration of the matter of air itself is, like the molecules are kind of together and they're making that noise. They must be really having a frenzy when they whoosh by, if to be able to hear wind. There must be a lot really going on there. So that's interesting. How about smell? How can air be perceived through the sense of smell?
Incense.
Incense?
Yeah. Herbs crushed
Okay.
together, burnt, produces a scent and also smoke that can put us mentally in a different space, can give us a different feeling.
So the element of air has an ability to carry scents and odors that our noses that can detect. So that's just strange. Those molecules of air are grabbing upon a smell and pushing it. So the little elemental beings are grabbing the smell and bringing them towards you. You can almost, in my mind, I visualize it as these little elemental beings like grabbing the stench. Like, here's some of that. They might be pleasant. It may not be. Yeah. So finally, air can be perceived through the sense of sight. While air itself is invisible, we can see the effects from the world around us. We can see the dust, we see the debris blown by the wind, the clouds moving across the sky. So, in spiritual practices, some people believe in the ability to be able to control the air, the wind, through psychic ability, something called aerokinesis. Aerokinesis. A fancy way of saying you control the wind. Does anybody believe in that or think that it's possible? And if
I
so,
do.
what's your explain?
Well, I'll give you a story.
Okay.
One time I went to a pagan festival called Trees of Babylon Gathering.
Cool.
And during that weekend, there was a fire circle and a ritual supposed to be going on at a certain time, but it was supposed to rain. And so it was starting to rain. And then someone went up on the mound and did a few prayers and things. And the rain stopped. And on the map, it showed that the rain was really there, but it really wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've seen that done twice now, so I know it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I go ahead.
I'm just blown away.
I think we're only limited to our imagination.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Limiting beliefs. Get rid of it.
Yeah,
The power of mentalism. We create our own reality. Isn't that something?
yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'd just
go
like
ahead.
to share my experience of contacting deceased people
Okay.
is through, because I used to go to the spiritualist church, which is you have to believe in a creator, and that's all. There's no other sort of belief to it. And we were doing it was November when we have our veterans remembrance of the 2 World Wars, and we were sat there very quiet, waiting to see which departed spirits came through, and I smelt fire. I mentioned that, and that was well before anybody could actually see any of the spirits that were coming through. And also, strangely, this house is from the 1840s, and the upstairs neighbour died, but for months afterwards we could smell her perfume. And we also have a Victorian guy who walks past and smokes a cigar, and I can smell the cigar. My partner can actually see them, but that's all I can do. I just smell these days.
Very touching. Very touching. Okay, so we're getting it at the end of the hour of the class. So on this note, I would like to try a ritual of aerokinesis, controlling the element of air, with a very simple test using the hermetic principle of mentalism, and utilizing that and remembering that the element of air is beneath your mind, because all is mind and the universe is only mental. So I've written out a little ritual where you say specific poetic things, directions, and then you you want to make the wind blow from a certain angle or direction. Feel free to rewrite this ritual in your own capacity. The most important thing is that you're getting out there in nature, you're observing the directions, and you're feeling the wind, and you're experiencing the wind and becoming in tune with the element of air. And that's basically where I want to go with that. You'll be surprised of how well air turns out to obey you. And did the wind come from the direction that you called? Did it blow from a specific direction that corresponds to something else that may baffle you? Because we all have our own mentalism and the underlying message. So without further ado, that about wraps up the core class today. Does anybody have any questions? Dark Heart, stay with us. In the weeks to come, we're definitely going to be talking about things like the LBRP, the LBRH, and a lot of those techniques, and trying to apply them with core attributes of why they really were written, and getting to the source of it, getting to the core of it, which I think is important. Comments, questions, anything at all?
Well, I work every other weekend. I work in a warehouse, well, basically Procter and Gamble. And we just got done our peak season. We're working 6-7 days a week. Yeah, Logan, what? Hold on a moment.
Right, that's understandable. Every other week is fine. If you can pop into the core class, which people that haven't been doing their introductory essays, I'm going to ask that you please kindly remove yourself. If I get around to it and they haven't done their essays, I will be asking people to go to the main body group, which is the main witchcraft teachings group, because the core class are people that have the passion and that want to really work, and that's why we're implementing that. Because something that I heard from a very good friend of mine is that what we are looking for in the craft is quality, not quantity. To me, that always rings true, where you want quality, you don't want quantity. Yeah. So that's all I got. Thank you so much. Week 2, the Hermetic Principle of Mentalism, the element of air, and your belief systems. I'll keep you posted in the core group. Y'all have a great rest of your Sunday.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Nice meeting
everybody.
you all. And just one thing I'd say, if you don't have a practical use or don't use it, then it's really meaningless, because the only type of practice that really matters is what you actually do.
Yeah.
So, but anyway,
Blessed be, y'all.
I got my kids here today and the dog, so they're all vying for my attention. So So talk to y'all later.
Bye.
See you Wednesday.
I know.
Bye.